Welcome to US History and Elections, where today we're going to be starting a brand new series on my channel, 2020 Battleground, where we will be looking at the most competitive states in the 2020 upcoming presidential election. And we're going to be starting off with the state of Florida. Ever since 2000, where Florida was in the news and eventually the entire election rested upon this one state, and the Supreme Court decided in favor of George Bush, who eventually won the entire election, almost ultimately depending on the electoral votes coming out of the state. Anyway, ever since 2000, it has been almost the key bellwether state, taking place of Ohio, and no president has won without Florida since 2000. And we're going to be looking at what the possible outcome of the upcoming November election will be, and whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden will be carrying the state. Now, one important thing to say here is that in 2016, Donald Trump identified New York as his home state. However, in 2020, he will be identifying Florida as his home state, given that his Mar-a-Lago resort is found in Florida. And that could be important in helping sway some voters to his side. But first of all, we're going to be looking back at the 2016 election results. Just remember that Donald Trump won this by 1.2%. And even though most of the pollsters had this as a toss-up state, a few did have it as a lean Hillary Clinton state, but the polling was consistent and it never went over the margin of error. So a Donald Trump win in this state was not a huge surprise. People were saying that it was possible. However, one key thing to take out of this is in 2016, Donald Trump won 54% of Cuban American votes, which has almost a huge population in counties such as Miami-Dade and Broward. And compared to just 29% of Latinos across the country, it shows that this voting bloc, especially in southern Florida, is going to be pivotal in whether he can win it again this year. Now, if we go back to 2020, we're going to have a quick look at the current predictions. And as you can see, last 2 months, roughly, all the sources have characterized it as a toss-up, minus Sabato's crystal ball, which has it as a lean Republican state. And if we go down onto the polls, this is just some of the most recent polls. You can see that is currently quite consistently going for Joe Biden. If we go down to, I'll be going back too farther, but as you can see, this is where it's just when Biden has been confirmed as the Democratic nominee. You have +6, +1, +4, +3, +5, and another +5 and +1. So there's not a single one where it's saying that's going to be even or in favor of the president. Now, if we look just a couple of months back before the start of this global pandemic, you can see it was a lot tighter. We have here an even one. This was roughly when the lockdown started, and the stay-at-home orders were issued. And then, as you can see, it's back and forth at this point: 51%, 47, 48. So it's a lot tighter when we go back further. But as the president's approval rating has, or voter intention has dropped in recent months, Joe Biden's has, I wouldn't say increased that much, whether it has stayed relatively steady, with the president losing some numbers. And just a reminder that there's still roughly 5 to 8% of undecided voters. So, and the margin is easy enough for, if Donald Trump won the majority of these undecided voters, he could definitely take the lead. However, if we want a proper characterization of this state, it is very important to look back at the 2018 Florida governor race. And in this race, as you can see, it was very tight, with Ron DeSantis, after a machine-mandated recount, taking the victory by only 0.4% of votes, and that being roughly 30,000 vote difference. And when we go down to the predictions that pollsters had, it was mostly characterized as a toss-up. However, a few had it as a tilt lean and even a likely Democratic win. And this was consistent with the polling, with only with DeSantis winning a few of the actual polls leading up to the election. However, Andrew Gillum won a vast majority of these. But in the end, this was not met with the actual victory going to DeSantis in the end. So this change from what seemed to be a possible Democratic win in the governor race here ended up being a Republican win, which only solidified the GOP's hold of the state. So overall, if we're going to be looking at who could actually win this race, it's important to take in the recent elections of only 2 years ago, and the fact that it is definitely going to be a toss-up. It is definitely going to be a toss-up. And despite Joe Biden's recent advances in the polls, this is most likely going to be a temporary shift, with Donald Trump likely to regain some of his numbers, if not most of them, as we go up through the year into towards November. And Biden, with his current 3-point lead, is likely to narrow, definitely. And I'd still say it is definitely a toss-up. And if anything, going by previous trends and results, especially of 2018, is definitely going to be more in favor of the president than Joe Biden when it comes to the day of voting. So thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more election prediction and historical videos later in the year. And I will see you all soon.